A young man named Isaac Cypress has long been fascinated by unexplained phenomena, particularly stories of alien visits to Earth. Fueled by his curiosity, he's determined to discover why these extraterrestrials keep showing up. Unbeknownst to Isaac, his investigation will lead him to a shocking truth. In a historical flashback set in 1979, a lumberjack named Carl is returning home from work in Wrangell, Alaska. Night is falling, and he's driving behind his friend's truck on a lonely road. Suddenly, his friend's truck is lifted into the sky by an unknown force. As Carl brakes in horror, the falling truck slams onto his own vehicle. Worried about his friend's safety, he jumps out to check on them. That's when he notices a large UFO hovering above the treetops. Panicked, Carl runs into the dense Alaskan wilderness, but the craft follows him. A bright beam shoots down, lifting Carl off the ground and leaving him paralyzed in midair. Fast forward to the present day, Isaac Cypress arrives at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where he works on signal analysis. He and his close friend Beck have turned their jobs into a kind of game, using NASA satellites to transmit hidden signals for each other to locate. Isaac impresses Beck by finding the signal in record time. However, Beck reveals that Isaac actually tracked a completely different signal, one not sent by Beck. Intrigued, they trace the origin of this unexpected signal to a location in Canada. It's baffling, because there are no registered satellite stations in that area. For fun, Isaac decides to bounce the same mysterious signal back into space, challenging Beck to find it later. Little do they know, this small act will lead to extraordinary events that will change Isaac's life forever. That evening, as Isaac stays late to work on some data, his computer begins receiving another signal, this time from an unknown source deep in space. The data stream is filled with random code that appears to have no immediate meaning. Enthralled by this new development, Isaac stores the data for further analysis. Shortly after, Isaac's therapist advises him to keep a video diary as a coping mechanism for his frequent nightmares and anxieties. Deciding to follow this advice, Isaac starts carrying a camera everywhere, capturing spontaneous thoughts and experiences. One day, while Isaac is filming himself after a hike, a dazzling meteor streaks across the sky and crashes nearby. Moments later, fighter jets roar overhead, and the wail of sirens echoes through the forest. Realizing a government lockdown is imminent, Isaac hides in the bushes to avoid being removed from the restricted zone. Determined to see what just fell from the sky, Isaac sneaks through the trees toward the crash site. Upon arrival, he's astonished to spot a landed UFO, its metallic surface radiating an otherworldly glow. Excited and terrified, he raises his camera, hoping to capture proof. But the craft disappears in a heartbeat, leaving behind no trace, except an alien being standing just a few yards away. Trembling, Isaac discreetly presses the record button on his camera. The alien regards him silently as though studying his every move. After a moment, it walks away into the darkness. Isaac tries to follow, but before he can make sense of what's happening, he feels his body go limp and collapses into unconsciousness. 3 days later, Isaac wakes up in a completely different location with no memory of how he got there. Confused, he checks his camera and is stunned to discover footage of himself being levitated by a strange beam, just like Carl was in 1979. There is also a brief clip of the alien's face. Making matters even more perplexing, Isaac notices a peculiar mark on his arm. Still in shock, Isaac returns to his apartment. He sits on his bed, overwhelmed and unsure whether to call the authorities, NASA, or a news station. As he stares at his television, it suddenly vanishes into thin air. Isaac tentatively waves his hand where the TV used to be, feeling an invisible force, like a barrier that has displaced his TV into another dimension. Focusing intently, he wills the television to reappear. To his amazement, it does. Eager to understand what's happening to him, Isaac repeats the experiment, filming himself as he makes various small objects vanish and reappear. He then decides to seek medical advice. During an examination, X-rays reveal a clean, straight fracture line in his arm bone. as though someone sliced through it with a laser or scalpel, then sealed it back together without leaving any scar. Armed with the bizarre footage on his camera and the strange X-ray results, Isaac heads to work and confides in Beck. He demonstrates his new ability to shift objects into another dimension, but Beck can't see it. Only Isaac perceives the disappearance. Next, Isaac shows Beck the alien footage and Beck is understandably astonished. While Isaac wants to share it with more coworkers, Beck warns him against doing so. Worried about the potential fallout or legal trouble, Beck advises caution. But Isaac, frustrated and longing for validation, goes home and uploads his alien abduction video to a public website. He titles it, "Authentic Alien Encounter, Must Watch." The following morning, Isaac is jolted awake by a phone call from a news anchor who wants an exclusive on his footage. He checks the video online and sees it has already amassed nearly 1 million views overnight, igniting a media firestorm. Isaac can't believe his eyes as he reads hundreds of comments. Some people are convinced his footage is genuine, while others label him a hoaxer out for fame. Throughout the day, calls pour in from major news outlets, online magazines, and curious fans, all clamoring for interviews. Overwhelmed, Isaac finally agrees to appear on a primetime news show. On air, he details the account of his alleged abduction, hoping that public exposure will compel authorities to investigate. However, the interviewer laughs at his story and accuses him of orchestrating a convenient setup. "Why did you just happen to have a camera running when you encountered an alien?" The scornful tone discredits Isaac, making him look more like a desperate prankster than a credible eyewitness. In the days that follow, Isaac's story spreads across the internet and mainstream media. Public opinion is fiercely divided. Half the viewers are intrigued and want to believe him, while the other half call him a sham, insisting the footage is fabricated. Eventually, the tide turns against him, and more people begin suspecting a publicity stunt. Disturbed by the accusations and longing for someone who might truly understand, Isaac digs through countless online forums about alien abductions. He stumbles upon accounts remarkably similar to his own. In one forum, he finds a user named Sarah who claims to have experienced a near-identical encounter. Intrigued, Isaac sends her a private message requesting a meeting. Isaac and Sarah meet up in a busy cafe. After exchanging cautious pleasantries, she describes the vivid details of her own abduction, including strange markings on her arms. Isaac notices these markings are similar to his, making him feel less alone. Sarah then brings up a story from 1979 in Wrangell, Alaska, mentioning a man named Carl who claimed he was abducted. According to rumors, Carl vanished after going public with his alien encounter. This piece of the puzzle captivates Isaac, who had never heard of Carl's experience before. Driven by a sense of urgency, Isaac decides to mail copies of his alien footage to several online publications and specialized groups that gather abduction reports. While dropping off these packages, he's approached by a man named Keith. Keith introduces himself as a freelance writer who believes Isaac's portrayal in the media has been unfair. He offers to write an in-depth feature, allowing Isaac to share his side of the story unfiltered. Isaac is initially hesitant, but eventually agrees to meet Keith in his makeshift office the following day. Keith proposes that Isaac take a lie detector test to lend credibility to his claims. After strapping on the polygraph equipment, Isaac provides honest answers about every aspect of his alien encounter. To Keith's apparent surprise, all of Isaac's responses register as truthful. However, the test's success seems to unsettle Keith rather than reassure him. Visibly distressed, he excuses himself and steps outside the office. Suspicious, Isaac follows and sees two imposing men dressed like government agents stepping out of an unmarked car in the parking lot. Isaac tries to slip away, but one agent fires a tranquilizer dart, knocking him unconscious. Isaac awakens dazed in a stark white room. Robotic humanoid figures, androids, drag him along a corridor and strap him to a metal chair. He looks across the hall and glimpses Sarah, who appears to be in a similar predicament. A large screen flickers on, revealing Keith's face. Keith coldly reveals his true identity. Agent Graves of the International Space Research Program, ISRP, a clandestine organization tasked with monitoring and containing alien-related activities. Graves demands Isaac's cooperation in analyzing his so-called dimensional shifting power and the extent of his exposure to alien technology. One by one, objects are placed in front of Isaac, and he's told to make them disappear. Distracted by worry for Sarah, Isaac refuses to comply. Growing frustrated, Graves questions Isaac about Carl, insisting Isaac must know where Carl is hiding. Isaac insists he doesn't know anything. Sensing Isaac's defiance, Graves escalates his methods. Out of sheer desperation, Isaac musters the strength to break free from his restraints. He overpowers one of the androids and manages to seize a corridor keycard, sprinting down the hallway. Hearing distant alarms, Isaac searches for Sarah. He finds her locked in a small examination room and, focusing his mind, uses his dimensional ability to manipulate the security panel. The door slides open, and together they flee while the androids fire at them. A final turn leads them to an exit, sunlight blinding them as they burst outdoors, only to realize they're in a dense tropical setting. A sign reveals they're in Costa Rica, far from home. Back inside the facility, Graves orders his men to pursue the fugitives. He believes Sarah and Isaac will try to locate Carl, inadvertently leading the ISRP to him. Meanwhile, Sarah and Isaac scramble through the streets of a small coastal town, looking for help. The local authorities seem untrustworthy, so they duck into a modest restaurant. There, a sympathetic waitress directs them to Zed, a reclusive technology wizard known for his hacking prowess and off-grid lifestyle. Isaac and Sarah hurry to meet Zed, who greets them with mild suspicion but quickly recognizes they're in trouble. Before they can talk further, distant shouts warn them that ISRP agents are close behind. They dash to Zed's hidden refuge deep in the jungle, where he has set up an untraceable internet link. On the way, Zed explains that the ISRP is a multinational black ops group operating above government authority, dedicated to keeping alien encounters secret at all costs. Once at Zed's remote cabin, Isaac shares everything he knows. Zed combs through government archives, social media, and the dark web, trying to find Carl's whereabouts, but finds no official trace of him. Recalling the bizarre signal from Canada that he and Beck discovered, Isaac asks Zed to hack into NASA's internal systems to retrace that signal. If Carl is broadcasting or has broadcasted anything similar, they might locate him. Zed's hacking pays off. The original signal indeed originated from an unlisted location in Canada, consistent with decades-old rumors about a reclusive man sending coded messages into space. Zed sets up a secure video call, but the recipient immediately declines. Undeterred, Zed overrides the security settings and Carl's face appears on screen. Isaac quickly pleads his case, revealing that he too was abducted. Carl is about to end the call when Isaac mentions he once sent Carl's signal back into space and received a mysterious reply. Intrigued, Carl demands to see the decoded version. Isaac forwards the data, and Carl plays it through a program he designed to translate alien codes into audio. A distorted alien voice emerges, providing a time and location, an apparent rendezvous happening at Carl's house in just 5 days. After processing this startling information, Carl abruptly ends the call. Determined to join Carl and uncover the truth behind the alien arrival, Isaac and Sarah decide to travel to Canada, with Zed tagging along for the adventure. Using Zed's local contacts, they arrange a small private plane to fly under the radar. The next morning, they depart Costa Rica, narrowly slipping past ISRP's surveillance. Meanwhile, Graves monitors them via covert trackers he planted on Isaac and Sarah back at the facility. He mobilizes his men to intercept them at all costs. After a lengthy journey, the group reaches Carl's remote cabin, nestled in a heavily forested region. Carl greets them warily, but once Isaac and Sarah share their knowledge and their wounds from ISRP captivity, he cautiously lets them in. Carl explains that he too was abducted decades ago, then later captured by ISRP agents. He managed to escape and has spent the last 20 years living off the grid, trying to re-establish contact with the aliens. In his cramped cabin, advanced homemade devices line the walls, mechanisms Carl uses to decode signals and possibly communicate with extraterrestrials. He's convinced the aliens will come, and now they even have a date and time. Over the next 2 days, everyone prepares for the upcoming encounter. Isaac and Sarah share quiet moments in the woods, reflecting on how their lives have changed. At the same time, Zed excitedly tinkers with Carl's advanced gadgets, eager to witness history in the making. Carl remains laser-focused on finalizing his translation software, hoping to hold a real conversation with these beings. Despite the anticipation, tension hangs in the air. No one knows whether the aliens will arrive in peace or if ISRP will strike first. As the clock ticks down, each of them grapples with past trauma, uncertain futures, and the weight of their discoveries. On the day of the predicted landing, Isaac feels a subtle trembling underfoot. Carl points out that this is an indicator the extraterrestrials are close by, possibly affecting the area's electromagnetic field. Isaac ventures into the woods and soon encounters the alien craft descending gracefully through the canopy. Several alien figures emerge, radiating calm rather than aggression. Activating Carl's translation device, they begin what can only be described as a momentous conversation. The aliens claim their species has perfected medicine, physics, and all known sciences. Yet they continue to search for the true origin of the universe, something they believe lies within the human spirit or aura. Isaac listens in amazement as the aliens show him vivid projections of historical figures, including an image of Jesus. Fascinated by Jesus' central role in many human beliefs, they ask Isaac to explain his significance. They suspect a connection between human spirituality and the cosmic forces they're studying. Sarah, meanwhile, questions why she and Isaac had mysterious marks on their arms after being abducted. In response, an alien calmly uses a small handheld instrument to make a clean, bloodless incision in Sarah's arm, extracting a tiny tracking device. The alien explains that these trackers are for their records, analyzing the biological makeup that might lead to answers about the universe's deeper meaning. The alien also gently reiterates that, in their experience, believing is seeing, suggesting that faith and consciousness can reshape reality itself. Suddenly, gunshots echo through the trees. Graves and his men have arrived, positioning themselves around the cabin. Graves steps forward, fueled by a personal grudge against Carl. Many years ago, the truck that vanished before Carl's eyes contained Graves' father, who was never found. Racked by bitterness, Graves blames Carl for refusing to cooperate or share knowledge that might have saved his father. Driven by rage, Graves orders his men to open fire. A stray bullet hits Carl, and another catches Sarah in the crossfire. Isaac, horrified, drops to his knees beside Sarah. The lead alien urges Isaac to focus on the truth about reality, that the mind can transcend physical boundaries. Mustering all his will, Isaac taps into his dimensional shifting ability, enveloping the entire cabin and everyone inside it in a shimmering aura. Instantly, they are transported to another dimension, inaccessible to Graves and his armed agents. In this alternate space, the aliens use their advanced healing methods to treat Carl and Sarah's injuries, effectively saving their lives. As the aliens guide Carl, Isaac, and Sarah onto their UFO, they disappear in a burst of light, leaving Graves behind, powerless to stop them. 6 months later, Isaac and Sarah are living quietly on a tropical island, taking comfort in a peaceful existence. Their bond has grown stronger, and they continue their video diaries, documenting not only the extraordinary events they've survived, but the lessons learned. Meanwhile, Zed and Carl operate a secretive tech agency dedicated to helping others who may encounter alien phenomena. Graves, having violated ISRP protocols, is dismissed from his post, forced to confront his actions alone. Isaac closes his latest diary entry with a promise. There is more to our universe than we see. Sometimes, by believing first, we truly begin to see. Then the camera fades out on their serene island home, leaving the final fate of humankind's cosmic visitors an open mystery and a doorway to future discoveries.